answer any questions.
Marisa Lagos, KQED.
Hi, thanks, Governor. I know that there has been a lawsuit filed by Orange County against the beach or by some residents down there, and I wanted to see your reaction there, and if you have time. I'm also curious about sterilizations of masks, which you authorized in April. I'm hearing in San Francisco there's some pushbacks from unions who are concerned about the safety of that.
Yeah, I don't know specifically about a particular issue of what San Francisco is doing. I can just tell you what we announced a few weeks ago, and thank you for prompting this. We made a deal with a company called Battelle to put together a sterilization unit of N95 masks. The first one went up and is operational in and around Burbank in Southern California. There's a second unit that's coming to Northern California that quite literally as we speak is being set up. And to the extent that it's been FDA certified, to the extent that this technology has been around in the past, I can only offer this. One of those masks arrived that was sterilized off that line from Burbank today and was presented and shared with our team in our morning meeting. And it looks as new as any other mask. That said, I appreciate sterilization up to 20 times per mask is not everybody's first choice. And that's why we went out to get that large contract, and we are looking forward to getting many, many more of these N95 masks. I should just note, we have distributed, I don't know another state that can claim this, though I hope I'm wrong, because it'd be encouraging to hear of other states distributing over 44 million N95 masks, 44 million. But we'll need multiples even of that to meet the needs as we transition into the future in a post-COVID world. As it relates to the lawsuit, all I can say is it doesn't surprise me, and we'll see. Forgive me for saying this. We'll see what happens this afternoon.
Doug Sovereign, KCBS Radio.
Hi, Governor. Couple things. First of all, obviously you're keenly aware of protests going on all around the state and of the lawsuits being filed, multiple lawsuits. You know, these folks are calling you a tyrant and a fascist, and you're being driven by ego, not by data. Can you make the case that you are, in fact, the decisions you're making are, in fact, being driven by data and science? And the posture we're seeing from you today, where you're being more optimistic, talking about days, not weeks, is still driven by that, as opposed to by the political pressure you seem possibly to be feeling today. And then second, you mentioned 2 days ago that there was going to be a further clarification in terms of the Bay Area this coming Monday, allowing groups of kids, 12 or fewer kids, to gather, not just in daycare, but in some additional settings. Have you gotten that clarification? Is that okay now with the state order in terms of what the Bay Area is planning to do on Monday?
Yeah, we're, in fact, across the spectrum, not just in terms of those numbers, our team's been working hand in glove with the 6 counties and 1 individual city. So we are in line, and we're very pleased with that partnership and that progress. As it relates to the issue of data, every single day, Doug, I give you the data every single day at noon. I provide information every single week. We give you an update in terms of the indicators. We laid out specific indicators. We've been highlighting those indicators, drilling down more deeply on each indicator. We did one on testing and tracing and tracking, on quarantine and isolation. We did one earlier this week specific to businesses and sectoral strategies, even regional strategies. And then I update you on the number of deaths every day. I update you on the number of PUIs and not just number of hospitalization and ICU patients. And you've seen those lines becoming stable. So that's given us some confidence. And that's why earlier this week on Monday, we didn't wait to respond to others. We were very proactive and said weeks, not months, and we're well within that time period. And I'm saying today with some optimism that we saw a decline in the number of hospitalizations. We saw a significant decline in PUIs, both for hospitalizations and ICUs. That's even more encouraging based upon a series of other factors, all around the frame of the 6 health indicators that we've been very public about. Gives me confidence moving forward. But it also gives me a point to reinforce a point of caution. And that is, we can screw all that up, we can set all that back by making bad decisions. All of that works because people have done an incredible job in their physical distancing. But we changed that, and we see the images we saw last weekend in concentration of thousands of people. We could start to see a spread again. And so that's the only thing that will set us back. But I appreciate expression. I appreciate points of view. We have that with our staff. I believe in the Socratic method. It means different points of views and perspectives brought to bear in a forum of trust where people can put their points of view to the test and be challenged. And that's the way we conduct ourselves. And that's another way of saying what I say often, and you've heard this, that we're not ideological. We're open to argument. We're interested in evidence, and the evidence is bearing out that we're seeing some good things, but still some yellow flags of caution, and that's what we've been bringing up on a daily basis.
Angela Hart, Kaiser Health News.
Thank you, Governor. Rural parts of California are thankful for, they're telling us that the state is making valiant efforts for trying to ramp up testing, but there's still really inadequate numbers in terms of sites and supplies needed for testing, and really it's not looking like there's any prospects for some of those rural areas and sites. So what's your message, Governor, to those rural parts of California that are still facing really extreme testing problems in terms of the sites and supplies? And if you could talk about how case counts have factored into the state's decision of where to locate some of those pop-up sites, that would be really helpful too.
Yeah, so all I can say is what I've been saying the last week. You may have heard earlier this week, I announced the first of the 80 sites that we have committed to advancing with our partnership with OptumServe. 80 additional sites, disproportionately, not exclusively, but disproportionately focused on rural California. I mentioned a week or so ago the first one up in Humboldt, mentioned the one up in Shasta, Sutter. You can get a sense we're trying to make sure we're doing justice to that outreach. There's specifically, just to be held to account, 42 sites that will be up, additional sites by Monday, and will substantially have incorporated into our larger task force strategy an effort to implement on the need for rural Californians that have been under-tested and under-resourced to have those needs met. We did those maps, as you recall, of testing deserts in the state and making sure these testing sites are proximate to people in and around those communities. It's another point of caution, isn't it? Your question of those that just want to turn on the light switch and go back to the way things were when some of those same communities are saying we need more tests. Well, that's exactly right. But we do need more tests. We need to get a better sense of what the community spread is, because in many cases, we just don't know because there hasn't been adequate testing. And that's why this partnership with OptumServe was so important and so foundational. And it's just one of many steps to increase testing in a very targeted and strategic way. We're also, again, focusing on inner cities all up and down the state of California. So that's where we are. We have a testing task force, and Angela, let me have a member of that task force reach out to you a little bit more so you can get a little bit more targeted precision on those 42 that may fill in the blank in terms of your question, and I'll spare everybody else going down every single city and county that we have lined up.
Tyler Horst, ABC 10.
Thank you, Governor. Today is the first of the month, and there are elected officials and organizations across the state calling on you to cancel rent and mortgage payments. Folks who are out of work are worrying about eviction and debt on the other side of this, especially if they're going to be responsible for back pay. So will you cancel rent and mortgage payments, or will you make any policy changes at the state level regarding rents and mortgages?
Well, as you know, we've made very substantial progress on mortgages. We were the first state to announce a partnership with the largest banks in the United States on mortgage forbearance. No impact on your credit rating, other components of that announcement, including debit cards and other issues related to fees and fines. We're very vocal about that and very proud of that announcement and partnership. As you know, we followed up at scale with an executive order in the state of California relating to civil proceedings and criminal proceedings as it relates to evictions and providing a framework of time and a little relief, the stress related to the same. We also provided clarification for cities and counties that wanted to go further on some of their protections for tenants. Cities like San Francisco, San Jose, LA went a lot further, but they had the ability to do so with some clarification based on based on that third executive order. So we've done a lot in this space. We'll continue to consider doing more, but it extends not just, it didn't expire last night, it extends into this next month, but we'll continue our vigilance and monitoring conditions in real time, and it's an answer to your question. And that is, we're looking at not just the issues of evictions and the agreements on moratorium and forbearance related to mortgages, but there were timelines, you're correct, with many of these announcements, and we are constantly looking to update those timelines, working to extend these partnerships voluntarily, and to the extent we can't do it voluntarily, make a determination of our legal obligations, our legal responsibilities, our legal thresholds for subsequent and further actions. And just know in this space, obviously, with so many renters and feeling deep anxiety and stress, we're going to be very sensitive to that. But through May, I think we'll have the next few weeks to really put together something. If we do feel we need to do more, that will be done in council and partnership with our cities, counties, and with a lot of these organizations that we've already engaged in.
Marissa Perlman, CBS 13.
Hey, Governor, thanks for taking my question. I'm here at the Capitol looking at hundreds, if not 1,000, here on the Capitol lawn, not practicing social distancing by any means. I'm also looking at both CHP officers as well as Sacramento police not intervening. At what point should enforcement come into play here, and at what point should you get involved?
That's a good question. If I got involved in every protest up and down the state, I wouldn't be involving myself in the efforts to start to make meaningful modifications to our stay-at-home order and really attend to a lot of the issues in the state. I count and defer to our team at the California Highway Patrol, particularly at the state capitol. I don't get involved directly in permitting decisions. I think that would be an unfortunate place for a politician or elected official to go. But what I care deeply about as a foundational issue, of which I am responsible for ultimately, is public health and public safety, broadly defined. I'll defer to the specifics as relates to enforcement to the Commissioner of the California Highway Patrol, and hope you do as well, and make sure they are responsive to you in terms of what you're seeing. I am not there, I'm here. As it relates to the protesters, all I ask for is this, and that is take care of yourself. Wear a face covering, do justice to physical distancing. You don't want to contract this disease. I just mentioned 50,000 people have been tested positive, another 91 families torn apart because of loss of life. 2,000 human beings have lost their life. It's impacted the entire state, rural, not just urban. This disease doesn't know if you're a protester, Democrat, Republican, if you support the election of one candidate or the ouster of another. It just knows one thing, and that is its host, and it has remarkable ability, people with asymptomatic conditions, to transfer to someone else. And so just protect yourself, protect your family, protect your kids, your parents, your grandparents, your friends, your neighbors, people that you're protesting with. That's all I would say to them, and thank them for their expression of free speech. It's that May Day is a foundational day for that, but I recognize that expression exampled all across the United States at this very challenging moment as we begin to toggle and begin to make adjustments, and people really want to see that happen sooner than later, and I deeply understand that.
Ben Christopher, Cal Matters.
Hey, Governor. Thanks again for taking the time. Two questions. One, cities across the state are obviously in very rough financial shape. I'm wondering, do you plan on pushing for more direct funding from the state in the ongoing budget negotiations, or providing, as the League of Cities has requested, additional funding from federal CARES appropriation? And then also, I don't know if you saw the new poll from the Institute of Governmental Studies that found that among California voters who strongly approve of the president are much less likely to be concerned about the risk of COVID infection and vice versa. So I'm wondering, kind of following up on the previous question that you answered, are you worried that concerns about this virus and the respect for social distancing is becoming sort of yet another partisan issue? And if so, do you think there's anything that you could do to change it at this point?
I'm working overtime to rise above the politics, the finger pointing, the bickering back and forth. I think you've seen that. I hope folks have noticed that. Trying to do my best in that space, working as cooperative as we possibly can with the administration and at all levels. Incredible work, partnerships with CDC and HHS, and work we're doing, their organization called ASPR, and incredible work of Bob Fenton and FEMA, administrative representatives. So we are very, very pleased by that partnership and the progress we've made together in this space. Again, this knows no boundaries, it knows no lines. You look at some of the more conservative parts politically in the state, they have been impacted by this virus, particularly in skilled nursing facilities. A lot of seniors lost their lives. I don't think death certificates have if you're a Democrat or Republican, but I can assure you, if you look at those death certificates, all Americans are represented in terms of that tragic loss of life, regardless of their political stripe. And so we're human beings, and we're all, as Dr. King said, bound together by a web of mutuality. We're all in this together. And so I hope we can maintain that spirit. But the spirit also of participatory democracy is also alive and well. I'm passionate about participatory democracy. Democracy is not about just standing still and standing pat. It's also about free expression. And so I also applaud that and thank everybody for their willingness to do it. All I ask is just do it safely, do it thoughtfully, not just for yourself, but for your neighbors and for others, and be an example in that respect. And I know sometimes that's more difficult than other times, and so I would just offer that as a point of consideration. Let me be very specific with you, though, on the first part of your question. We haven't been passive. We haven't been just waiting for the right moment. We were one of the first. In fact, I think we were the first state to formally request $1 trillion of support to help the states, cities across this country, and counties all across this country. We believed a few weeks back in a letter that we made public to Speaker Nancy Pelosi that we believe this country in the next 3 to 4 years is going to need the kind of support around $1 trillion. It's significant. And wonderfully, you saw Speaker Pelosi just a few days ago assess similarly that that's about the number that will be needed to help support states, counties, and cities that have been ravaged by COVID-19. And so we have been, the answer to your question is yes, very aggressive in that space. We didn't just throw out a number. We broke it down in health and education, workforce development, across the spectrum of needs and supports. As you know well, I'm in the process of doing a May revise. Last year, I did a May revise with a $21.4 billion budget surplus we were debating. This year, I'll be doing a May revise looking at tens of billions of dollars in deficit. We just went like that, billions in surplus in just weeks, tens of billions in deficit. So I'm going to do everything I can to work with these cities and counties, but I can assure you this, we are not going to be in a position, even as the nation's 5th largest economy, to provide for the needs of all the cities and the counties without federal support. And that's why the federal support is the foundational framework that we are hoping to advance and successfully so to help us bridge these deficits, which we anticipate not just this year, but over the course of the next few years, so we can come back stronger than ever, which I don't think we will. I know we will.
Final question, Spencer Custodio, Voice of OC.
Hi, Governor. Thanks for taking our question. My question is one of enforcement for Orange County, trying to figure out, you know, it looks like some police departments are still allowing people on the beaches like Huntington Beach. There's pictures right now. Not only is there protests, but also people on the beach. So I'm trying to figure out, you know, how the state's going to approach this, especially if some of the police departments aren't helping enforce this.
Yeah, I have confidence in local law enforcement, incredible confidence. I thought it was a wonderful statement the Police Chiefs Association put out yesterday. The California sheriffs have been incredible. We have wonderful partnerships, particularly with our team here at the Office of Emergency Services, coordinating those actions and activities. It's not just an enforcement mindset, it's also an encouragement mindset in this respect. It's notifications, it's communication, it's state park personnel doing the same, uniformed and non-uniformed. It's PSAs that are up. It's the signs, the signage you're seeing everywhere. It's the parking lot closures in and around those areas. And so, look, we'll see what happens over the course of this weekend. And look, if we have the kind of weekend that I hope and expect we will, where we don't see those huge crowds descend, then we're going to be in a position as early as Monday, Tuesday, I hope, to make some announcements of new strategies and partnerships that we're working on in real time to address these large crowds. Again, the only thing, I mean it, the only thing that's going to hold us back is a spread of this virus. And the only thing that is assured to advance the spread of the virus is thousands of people congregating together, not practicing social distancing or physical distancing. If we can avoid that, then we're going to get to the other side of this with modifications a lot quicker. And I just hope people will consider that, because I don't want to be up here month, 2, 3, 4 months from now saying the same old things. I want to be here every week, every month, announcing new things that give people more confidence, more optimism about their future and their family's future. And I'm confident we'll get there. And I'm confident because I really believe in this state and its people. And there are exceptions. But this is a state of 40 million people. And you've done a magnificent job. To each and every one of you may be watching, thank you for taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, taking care of your neighbors, taking care of your communities, taking care of our regions, taking care of this state, and in turn, taking care of this nation. That's patriotism. That's the American spirit, alive and well, bottom up. It's not always top down, it's bottom up. And I know it's percolating up in terms of people's anxieties and stresses, and I also want to just acknowledge that, but I also want to just acknowledge you and thank you, as always, for the incredible work you've done to flatten the curve in the state of California, get us where we're this close to starting to make some meaningful announcements in terms of modifications. Already this week, we made a lot of, I think, important modifications to open things up, but even more in the next few weeks, as long as we continue to practice social distancing, physical distancing, abide by those local county stay-at-home orders, and continue to be safe and to always look out for one another. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful weekend.
All right, Governor Gavin Newsom wrapping up his Friday news conference with a highlight of focus on essential workers and those displaced right now in the state, highlighting sick leave and stipends and wellness checks and other measures taken to help people out, especially our frontline workers. With that, he touched on PPE, a huge concern on this May Day. He announced earlier this week that 3.1 million new surgical masks were received, while 2 additional flights came in over the last 48 hours with 5.2 million additional units. 5.1 million already went out to those who need them. The governor also said this: we are now many days away from reopening. You know, before he was saying we were weeks, not months. He now says just days, so he scaled that back. In fact, he says he is really close to making some announcements when it comes to businesses like retail as soon as next week. But he says it's all about the data and the health right now when it comes to those numbers. On that, he says the state has reached 2 milestones. More than 2,000 people have died in California so far from the coronavirus, 91 in just the last 24 hours. 50,000 people have also tested positive from coronavirus. So he says that's also with more people getting tested. So that is the very latest right now in the state of California. You can stay with KPIX 5 News and CBSN Bay Area. We're always on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on KPIX.com.